Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax
FAIRtax
Guys.
Hey, your cube is on the beach with you down there.
Yeah, this is one of my little ones. This is my 6x6.
Yeah.
And yes, I changed my background today. I figure if I'm in Florida, might as well sit here.
That's right. You might as well look like you're in Florida. Folks, what you can't see, though, is the hula skirt he has on below the desk, which is probably a good thing.
And that's a good thing. That's not going to happen. As you can see, the wind is blowing the tree out there. And currently we're sitting under one of our famous Florida afternoon thunderstorms. So if my internet connection goes away because of power blips, hopefully that we won't have to edit anything together. But if you see we're kind of had to slice things together, that's what's happening. We got a thunderstorm outside. My internet connection goes away if the power goes off. So who knows? Well, how you been?
You won't even know we were gone. It'll be like that, and we'll be back.
Well, it takes about a minute and a half for my internet connection to regenerate after it's been off. So let's just hopefully that doesn't happen.
It's a great show today. Congress.gov and 16 reasons we'll delve into whether you decide if you want the income tax or the fair tax. We'll give you some reasons. But first,
we get to show you what the Congress critters are trying to do to the tax code. And I don't think we've really explained it here for the past little while. You go to congress.gov. Up at the top of the page, there's a search function. You enclose the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes, so you're searching on that entire string and not on the individual words. And if you select just legislation in the current Congress over there on the left side and hit the go button, as of the date we're recording this, 1,815 hits on that search where the Congress critters are trying to change the tax code, including at the very top of the list here is H.R. 8467 to amend Title II of the Social Security Act and the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to make improvements in the Old Age Survivors and Disability Insurance Program and to provide Social Security benefit protection. I got a better way to do that.
Yeah, fair tax.
Yes, that is actually that bill came from Florida. It's Representative Theodore Deutsch, I guess, DEUTCH, Florida 22. It was introduced just a couple of days ago. So you're going to try to make improvements and kind of makes me wonder, why is the Internal Revenue Code dealing with the parameters of the Old Age Survivors and Disability Insurance Program? I can see how the Internal Revenue Code gets into providing Social Security benefit protection. But if you want to provide Social Security benefit protection, properly fund the Social Security Trust Fund by making the fair tax the law of the land instead of just payroll taxing only those people who are working for a paycheck.
True. And Congress likes to kick cans down the road. I think that
feels like a game I used to play as a kid.
Yeah, and they play it now in Congress where they kick those entitlement programs down. The funding is a challenge. So they figure, okay, well, I got another 14 years. So
yeah, we'll spend more money than we've got. And when we run out of money, it'll be somebody else's problem. And we're not going to fix it because that will mean taking away what we've given that we shouldn't have done in the first place, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, don't.
Fair tax.
And we keep reelecting these people.
Well, and the thing is you get up there to Washington and you get fed the good stuff and you get into that whole thing about being in Washington. I'm a congressman, all those things, as opposed to being like a citizen legislator, like it was, when our grandparents were alive.
That's the way that the original framers of the Constitution envisioned things: citizen legislators and not career politicians. But that's another different issue.
Somehow we let that happen. I'm praying that the generation behind us is going to have enough of the what-y and stick it to them.
Yeah. I should note also that there's a companion Senate bill that does the same thing, make improvements in the Survivors and Disability Insurance Program, Social Security benefit protections. That's a S4583. But moving on, this is another Senate bill, S4589, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to adjust certain credits and deductions for inflation, something we haven't had to deal with until recently.
Yeah, all of a sudden that, whatever it is, what is it now? 10 point something, 11?
Yeah, it's on up there.
But so now we're indexing the tax code to inflation.
There's no text in this, so I can't really tell exactly which credits and deductions need adjusting. This is Senator Chuck Grassley's bill from Iowa. But to amend the Internal Revenue Code to adjust certain credits and deductions for inflation, which sounds like something they should have done the first time.
Right. And of course, the response from us is take the FAIRtax and make it the law of the land and get people this go round. We're getting out of the season of the primaries. When we get to the general election, it's time to put the pedal to the metal, and let's make sure that we have people that are going to Washington in the midterms here, that they understand the benefits of a tax on consumption of the FAIRtax.
Absolutely. That's what we got to do. And remember, we've had several people both tell us that I think Mo Brooks was one of them. And I think Marissa Selvig was another one, to say it's just a whole lot easier to elect people that already support the FAIRtax than it is to convince people that are already up there to support. Right. So if you go into office and you're not a FAIRtax supporter, the chances of convincing them to become one are pretty slim. You've got to elect people who are on board with the FAIRtax before they get elected. And of course, we're connected with now this program, FAIRtax Power Radio, is just you and me, two average citizens talking. But since we do have some connections with nonprofits that are not allowed to be partisan, we're not going to endorse anyone. We'll just say find out who supports the FAIRtax and vote accordingly. But
yeah, education is what we're all about.
Absolutely. All right, well, let me continue to educate you on what the Congress critters are trying to do to the tax code. This is H.R. 8448 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to end the tax subsidy for employer efforts to influence their workers' exercise of their rights around labor organizations and engaging in collective action. Obviously, when employees are trying to unionize, the company in most cases is trying to talk them out of doing that.
Right.
And apparently there's a tax subsidy for employer efforts to influence their workers' exercise of rights around labor organizations. And this bill wants to end that tax subsidy. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
You never knew that was in the tax code, did you?
It was I'm thinking, and that was for other purposes.
No other purposes on this one, but that's you could probably tack that on to just about all of them.
That's the question of the day is, we could always just take a trip up there and see our representatives and just sit on their bench outside their office and do one of our shows from the halls of Montezuma to the
That would be cool. Well, that'd give me a good excuse to get on the auto train, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That runs here from Central Florida up to D.C. or to actually Lorton, Virginia, which is a D.C. suburb.
Right. You can stop off in Raleigh, pick me up, and head on to, go on up.
Only trouble is the auto train doesn't go through Raleigh, and the only stop it makes is in Florence, South Carolina for fuel and a crew change.
Yeah, that's right.
So you'll have to take another train up there. One more here in this week's edition of Congress.gov, H.R. 8447 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to impose an excise tax on certain investments of private colleges and universities. And I'm not even sure what to think about that one.
Certain investments, like ink pens or
I have no idea. There's no text in this. I can't read through it. And if I did, it's probably written in legalese and buried, and heaven only knows how far down in it. But
all you got to do is write a few whereases and heretofores, and then you basically got it covered.
Yes, but that's it. Then that's that is our Congress.gov segment for this week on FAIRtax Power Radio. Again, we do this every week that we don't have a guest or something special that we're doing, because we believe, and I think it's absolutely true, that the best argument we can make to get rid of the tax code is to show people A, what's in it, and B, what the Congress critters are trying to put in it. And of course, we could
like making spaghetti. It's after a while it just gets all in the you have a nice little section of noodles that are nice and crisp and everything, and then you break them in half and you throw them in the pot. And by the time you get the spaghetti made, it's kind of all like this. Of course, and that's what has happened to the tax code. Tax code over the years is supposed to be, a
lot of the things we like to do here on Congress.gov is show people just exactly how unstable the tax code is. We want to make this permanent. We want to repeal that. We want to do this. We want to do that. And then the next Congress comes back and changes it. And you just can never know what the tax code is going to say from one year to the next. Because as I say, as we're recording this, 1,815 hits on the search for Internal Revenue Code in the current Congress, and it's not even half through.
But yeah,
I mean, this is just the first year of a 2-year Congress, so that number is probably going to be twice that by the time the congressional session ends next year.
Yep, not a doubt about it. And the other thing is when you consider all of the additions that have been made and pointing to other sections of the tax code already in existence, I sit back and I wonder, is there somewhere in the verbiage a conflict? Who looks for the subtle places where what we enact and put in the tax code today and how it impacts something that was put in 3 years ago, and how long does it? Where could those pieces supposedly being put together not actually fit together as the people who wrote the law put the piece in the tax code yesterday? You see how confusing it gets? I've confused myself here. But I mean, I'm wondering if one would negate another part of another to essentially make to null and void the first segment.
Oh, I'm sure they do. There's lots of times when we look into these things that do have text that says you go into section 8,427 and you strike subparagraph 1,504. So they're always messing with it and always changing it, which is a really good reason to get rid of it.
And it's probably like the shell game, that people play. Where's the little marble or whatever is underneath and you keep missing it because they keep moving things around and they're over here doing this, and they while you're distracted over here, they're over here doing something completely different, and you're
and they bury it within the 75,000 plus pages, and nobody can ever find it. And we could only scratch the surface here of what they're trying to do with it.
I think that's what we miss. Life is too short for all the mumbo jumbo of the Internal Revenue Service and the income tax. It's just time. Hey, let's live life and let's get rid of it. There's no other reason. Congress.gov is a great example of why the whole thing is so dysfunctional.
Yeah, that's a pretty good segue into what else we're going to do on today's program. Remember, last week on FAIRtax Power Radio, we got to talking about the things, what makes the FAIRtax fair. And I noticed in the comments to that show, somebody said there needs to be a part 2 for this. And so folks, the lesson is, yes, we do look at the comments, and yes, we do respond to them. So if you would like to leave comments on the program as it is streaming on the FAIRtax official Facebook page, or on the, of course, we're on the Facebook page with the show streaming. It streams at the same time on the FAIRtax Guys YouTube channel. And then after the fact, we put it up on Rumble. We put it up on FAIRtaxGuys.com. There are a couple of places you could look to see the thing. Correct. But I say we do pay attention. And if you will write us emails at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com, leave us messages on our Facebook page, leave us messages on our YouTube videos. We do see them, most of them. Sometimes it takes a few days to do it, but we do get these things. But we saw that part 2 of what makes the FAIRtax fair. Kind of, I was digging through a whole pile of stuff that Ron Malero left for me. And I found a document. I sent you a copy of it.
Yes.
16 reasons you decide. Do you want the income tax or do you want the FAIRtax? And one of the things is that, people just don't understand that they have a choice. The fact that the income tax system has been with us since 1913 for well over 100 years, nobody working today has known anything else. That doesn't mean it has to be that way. We have a choice. So to start this off, you can choose to spend 8 hours or more reporting your income and expenditures on a complicated number of government forms, calculating percentages, additions, and subtractions. That's one option. Or you can just pay your taxes as you purchase new products and services by adding them to your purchase costs. Take your pick. Which one of those systems would you rather have?
I think I'll pay my taxes as I purchase new products and services by adding the tax to the purchase cost.
Yes, you will save yourself all the time and trouble of filling out tax returns. You will no longer have to disclose to the government the intimate details of all of your personal finances. I mean, it is astounding how much the IRS knows about you already.
And has collected somewhere in an antiquated computer system that who knows who else has access to it.
Well, hackers and leakers and folks like that that want to make your public. Yeah, so that's it. So you have a choice. Do you want tax returns or not? You can fund the government with a consumption tax that you pay at the cash register, or you can continue to support the income tax. Take your pick.
Yeah, publication 17 is my favorite publication to read. I keep up with it, and there's changes every year, so I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. I always compare the sections from one year to the next on this document that basically explains the income tax forms. And of course, I'm being facetious. I have no desire to continue reading that. And especially now that I know that drug dealers are now going to have to report their income, and people who steal stuff are going to have to report their income.
That is required under a section that publication 17. If you steal something, you must report its fair market value on your income tax return, report it as income, unless you return it to its rightful owner, in that tax year. The world writes that stuff and actually believes that anybody's going to abide by it.
All right, number 2. Would you collect the income taxes with the Internal Revenue Service that ignores the Bill of Rights, or have taxes sent directly to the Treasury by state collection agencies?
I'll pick the state collection agencies.
That's right. It makes it so much more easy to manage because the state's already got the systems in place state by state by state. So now the repository at the U.S. Treasury has less people, less room for error, and your FAIRtax becomes a button on the cash register where you bought your whatever you bought.
Yeah, that's just it. The difference between the income tax, the complexity thereof that we highlight on Congress.gov every week, and any sales tax. But we're speaking specifically the FAIRtax will work just like any other sales tax. It's a percentage of the price of the products you purchase. It's a very simple calculation that the most elementary computers, from 50 years ago were capable of making in a couple of nanoseconds.
Yeah.
And so it's the computer collection of the FAIRtax. They will compute it. The computer's point of sale software, which is already programmed to handle the state sales tax. It's a very simple thing to add in the FAIRtax to that as well. So the stores that keep track in their point of sale systems of how much they sell, how much tax they collect. So they say, all right, I collected, X number of dollars of FAIRtax today. That goes in this account, and that will go to the state collection agency. And the state revenue departments have gotten really good at spotting fraud. You talk about the fraud that's in the income tax as well. But it's an incredibly simple thing. The computer will do all of it.
That's right.
You don't have to reveal any information about yourself. It's totally anonymous. It's totally automatic. And you have a choice. Do you want the system we've got now, or do you want to go to that one?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm all for when I go buy a pound of hamburger at $11 a pound. I'm excited about making sure that the tax gets taken there. I'm done with it. I've paid my portion for that particular person.
We need to make sure that people understand that the FAIRtax we're talking about replaces the income tax. So when the FAIRtax is the law of the land, no more withholding, no more payroll taxes. You bring home your entire paycheck. So you talk about all these taxes being added to everything you buy. Well, you'll have more money in your pocket to deal with that because of no withholding, no payroll taxes, and of course the monthly prebate that covers the taxes that you'll pay on your spending up to the poverty level for your household size. Again, you don't take a dime out of your pocket to pay the fair tax until you've taken care of your family. Feed the family before they feed the government. That's from last week's show. That's what makes it fair. But you have a choice as to which system you want.
And you can decide how much you want to spend on anything. And this is such a big, and for me, this is an important function. We talk about every so often. It encourages savings because your whole life savings, your 401k, your IRA, your savings account, the jars in the backyard, buried deep, will not have taxes taken out of them in the future. And that's a conversation for a whole nother program, but that's important. It encourages savings. And if you decide, I'm going to live off of, bread and water and crackers for a week, and the vegetables from the garden, well, then there you go.
All right, well, let's go on. I almost touched on this a bit earlier. Do you want to continue to put up with, and this paper we're looking at, I'm not sure how old it is, says an estimated 19% evasion. I'm going to change that to the current figure of nearly $1 trillion a year worth of tax evasion with the current system, or do you want to see tax evasion almost totally disappear? I'd take the disappear.
I think
we're $30 trillion in debt, for crying out loud. We need to at the very least stop running that debt up. We're eventually going to have to pay it all back. So why don't we have a system that doesn't leave money on the table? Again, I'll refer people to a white paper that Jade Wally wrote that's published on FAIRtax.org about the effects of the fair tax on evasion. He estimated that it would be a 95% reduction in tax evasion under the fair tax. I mean, how do you evade a tax that's part of the price of something that you buy?
Well, and it happens. The transaction is incremental instead of quarterly or bi-weekly, semi-monthly when you take your, and it's handled at the state level, which makes it a little bit more, I don't want to, it's not ordinary isn't the right word. It makes it a little more common. 50 states versus one big, giant behemoth IRS that handles all of that. The Treasury still exists. The Internal Revenue Service, you get to pack your bags, take a vacation, go home if you work for them. You could actually probably find a more meaningful job in the private sector, and the stress level goes way down. The whole psychological aspect of people's lives relative to the cycles that we have to live under with regard to the income tax.
Well, our time's getting away from us. We're not going to get through all 16 of these by any stretch of the imagination, but number 4 is a good one. Hit that one.
Yeah. Should we tolerate income tax? Did you say 4? Yeah. Tolerate non-filers, illegal immigrants, drug dealers, and other criminals paying no taxes. In other words,
that's tied to the previous point. They are among the worst tax evaders there are.
That's part of the deal. Or would you like to know that they are paying their fair share when they buy goods and services like you do with their cash, which of course, according to publication 17, they have to report. But if you would rather know that they're standing in line with you at the supermarket, paying the tax there. It goes from 150 million taxpayers on the income tax rolls to 350 million plus international travelers, plus anybody that's paying anything for anything. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how do you not pay the tax when it's a tax on consumption? So would you rather have the illegal immigrants, et cetera, knowing that they're paying no tax, or would you rather know that they are? What's your answer?
I'd rather make sure that they are paying their fair share as well. Of course, under the fair tax, each individual filer, a couple can file jointly, but you've got millions and millions filers under that you would have to administer and enforce using the income tax. Under the FAIRtax, the enforcement agency is directed at the retailers, not at the individuals. So,
right.
See, you're just several hundred thousand businesses versus several million, individuals. The enforcement and administration effort of the FAIRtax is just so much easier. That's off into the weeds from what we were talking about. But yeah, we do want to make sure that everybody, including the drug dealers and folks that are, hanging out under the lamppost at the corner of the street corner, are paying their fair share. One more thing here. We're about out of time here, but let's get one more anyway. Do we continue to tolerate withholding and payroll taxes being taken out of our paycheck? Do we continue to tolerate the government setting itself up as everyone's highest spending priority? Or do we insist on a system that ensures that we get our money first? I like the second one. How about you?
Yeah, I do too. And that's the thing. You don't. It's a windfall the day that it happens. You get your stub, your check, you get the direct deposit, or however you get your payment, and you look at it and you just say deduction for this, the federal this, old age, FICA, the actual amount that you have to take out, plus what your employer will pay in on your behalf, which could end up being a raise for you, or at least it would save the business money. But all of that is done. You get the money. You get an immediate raise in your pocket, plus the prebate, which untaxes all of your purchases up to the poverty level for each year. It's a considerable windfall.
A system where you have to tell the government all about your personal finances, or one where the tax system is completely anonymous? I'll choose the anonymous one.
Yeah, I'm ready for anonymity. Yeah. In every, if I want to go home and not worry about it, then that's where I want to be. If I want to be telling people my information, I'll go to a social media page and start posting about my life. So anyway, yeah, I would certainly not want the government to have all of my information centrally located. There's no need for that.
Well, again, we are here on FAIRtax Power Radio week after week after week after week, trying to educate people to the fact that you do have a choice. If you elect people to Congress that support the FAIRtax, we can get rid of this income tax system and all of the nasty stuff that comes with it. So find out who is running in your area, who supports the FAIRtax. Go to their town hall meetings, ask them. I mean, do you support the FAIRtax? And if they don't know what it is, educate them on what it is. And most of the time, if they're like the rest of us, once they understand it, they'll demand it.
That's right. How much time do I have left?
You got about 15 seconds.
Okay, well, goodbye, everybody. No, I'll bring it up again next week, because there's a point that has to do with that. But we'll cover.
I'll extend you 30. Go quick.
Okay. Now I forgot. No, I'm just kidding. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, a Libertarian, big tax and spender, left wing, far right wing, somewhere in the middle, the fact that the FAIRtax comes in, it would put more, I guarantee you, revenue into the federal coffers, and people wouldn't know how to spend it all. And then the debate would be, let's lower the debt and that type of thing. But there are other people that would say, hey, let's spend a lot more. We got a lot more money to spend and all. But the FAIRtax can put you on the path to that, no matter which side of the political persuasion road you stand on.
Okay, well, again, it's your choice. Make it, and make your choice at the ballot box. And again, that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. We are slap out of time and then some. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
The FAIRtax Guys reminding you that the FAIRtax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you will demand it.
So tell me how it works.
It's probably changed since the last time I saw it, but the short answer would be... You want to take this one?
Oh, sure. Okay. Imagine bringing home everything you make. You don't get taxed for saving or accumulating wealth, and your boss doesn't get taxed more even if he pays you more.
Wow, see, that's amazing.
So the end result of all that is the cost of producing products and running a business goes down, so things cost less. And on top of all that, imagine every criminal, non-citizen, and under-the-table worker also paying taxes.
That's amazing.
That's the fair tax. We tax what you consume as you consume it.